Oh, for those of you following us from close, we just announced we've been talking about Pulse View for some time. That's our product, but we've announced the intelligence behind Pulse View, and we baptized her Artina. So we just announced that recently, and Michael, you must be pretty excited after years of R&D to announce Artina.
Yeah, very exciting time. And we're sharing a little bit, right? There's lots more going on in the engineering labs, evolving that technology. But yeah, very proud. Artina, which stands for Actionable Real-Time IoT Network Analytics, has been trialed with a number of customers, so the technology's been proven out. And we're very excited now that we can let people know what we've been up to and engage more and more customers as we look to deploy this technology and help operators around the world, public and private, run their networks with actionable insight and visualization. Very exciting.
That's great. So one of the thing that I was hoping we could do on this video is, we've got Pulse View, we have the single pane of glass, now we have Artina. Maybe help the folks following these video series to understand what does what in a solution.
So Artina is the core technology used throughout our solution, right? You referred to the Pulse View, but you've got Pulse Agents, and you've got the Pulse Edge Compute, and you've got Pulse Director, and all those components. But the core, the brain inside all of them is Artina, right? So it's been designed day one for this. Talked about customers. So we're able to provide customers kind of instantaneous insight. So one, all customers have these, we use the word network, and you and I, Louis, will use the word network, right? Customers network. But we both know it's not a network. It's a whole bunch of heterogeneous networks that have been, I'll say, cobbled together. And then you have different vendors in different parts of those networks. So what we've been able to do for customers is when there's an issue or issues, highlight to them what region it's in. It could be vendor specific. In the example I think you're referring to, we're able to show them that vendor A in region 1 has this type of issue. That's who you need to go work with them on it. And vendor 2 in this other region, they have a different issue that you need to go work with them on. So we're actually opening their eyes to what's actually happening in their network. And which you identified is it enables them to have those discussions with the key suppliers in their networks.
A customer that uses us throughout their networks was able to identify, although the vendors are great vendors, they had some areas of improvement that they could help make the network better. And we were able to point per region, per vendor, what were the areas that they could improve. And we were able to witness challenges or issues in the network. And what's really interesting is that we're providing, Artina did all kinds of homework in the background, some intelligence, some machine learning, provided on Pulse View's GUI on a single pane of glass. The findings correlated in time and at the multiple layers. So the customer were able to actually share this with vendor A and vendor B and say, look, this is what this third party edge to cloud analytics company is telling me is happening here. And it's in real time. So if you help me fix it, we'll see the fix being implemented. And then they did the same thing with vendor B in the other part of their network. And, if they would have not had this third-party edge to cloud analytics, they would have gone to vendor A if they would have realized there was a problem and tried to figure out what's the issue with no feedback mechanism. Vendor B with no feedback mechanism and finger pointing between vendors. Now there's no finger pointing. There's a report. It comes from a third party. And as the problem gets resolved, it gets visible instantly. So you can have a really meaningful conversation with the customer. What was the customer's reaction when we were able to identify them and work with them and their vendors?
The first is I think they have a little bit of shock, which is they didn't know a lot they didn't know about. Like they know they have issues, but it's not quantified, right? And I think what you're referring to, Louis, is effectively we're able to normalize the experience across the different vendors and different parts of their network. We take out all those customizations and differences and those things that have many times maybe led them astray. They really couldn't tell. We can tell, no, this is what it is, right? Here's, you have issue here. So I think first they get in a shock. How did you do that? How were you able to figure that all out? And then they get to, oh, we can use it for this, we can use it for that. So we get into these discussions on how to use our TINA, right? And I think, there's the analytics tell us good and bad. There's where are the hotspots? There's just speaking to a customer today, it's, oh, we can use this for planning where we might put edge compute because you're actually able to figure everything out, and it will know instantaneously when we turn something up if it's made a difference. And we were able to pick up, and we were telling them saying somebody's made a config change in your network, and they'd say, what do you mean? I go, because the performance just changed at this minute across your network, or this part of the network. Let's say it's a specific vendor, then the traffic, the patterns just changed. Your performance changed. Somebody's made a config change, and then they go chasing it. So what we're finding is we're providing them information like this, and they're still learning how to use that information to make changes. And I think, Louis, we've talked about this before, where our TINA really becomes super, super powerful is when the self-healing entities are there, because instead of trying to paint it on screen and visualize it for humans, we'll be telling a machine, hey, you've made a change in the network, you've caused this performance issue in this part of the network, you need to, back out that change.
That's great. And I think the other thing from being in the networking business for a long time, if you have multiple tools from multiple vendors, you start trusting this tool for that function and this tool for that function. When we come in at a higher level and we see from the edge to the cloud, and we provide a ubiquitous scoring scheme for the QoS, we can say, regardless of the vendor, I don't care which vendor you use, Mr. Customer, in this part of the country, but I can tell you this, the quality of experience has moved up or down. And to your point, somebody just did something because it affected your voice, but it didn't affect your video or vice versa, right? If that tool would have not been available, they would have had to, fight it off between vendors.
Yeah, I think we've had that with all of our customers to date, actually enlightening them into what's actually happening, both currently and in the moment. And also we're detecting what we call festering problems, right? A lot of the problems that happen, it's like a wound that gets worse and worse and worse, a cut that gets infected. We're able to show that to them, and it's like they're starting to understand now that our TINA is giving them kind of an advanced notification. And if they're proactive of taking that insight and working with the operational side of their network, they'll be able to eliminate some issues before they even happen, right? And I think that's when we get in the value, and you and I are talking, when we talk about AI, the true value of AI is the predictive side, right? And when our TINA starts to predict, hey, you're going to have this problem, as it learns the networks that it's operating in, it will be able to tell the operators, you're going to have a problem in X days in this region. This is the type of problem you need to have. You need to take action now.
The holy grail becomes once you start predicting what's going to happen before it happens, and you start analyzing what the behavior of the network and say, well, there's been a change because this was not like this yesterday or last week or this morning or 5 minutes ago, right?
5 minutes. So, the networks are becoming way more dynamic. I think that the yesterday, last week, that's the old school of a non-dynamic network. The networks are far more dynamic, 5G, network slicing, SDN. You need to know now what's happening so you can automatically correct it. Knowing about it a week from now. Now, there are some slow trends that occur, Louis. We talk about that many times. The slow trends you still have to detect, but a lot of the issues are percolating regularly, and you want to detect it and isolate it.
So you mentioned 5G with, CAT-M, narrowband IoT, mission critical traffic, network slicing. Now people are consolidating and collapsing multiple proprietary network into their private or their public 5G network. So the network assurance, the network quality of experience is becoming far more important as more and more mission critical application are put onto these networks. And these networks are now going beyond the local area or the country, their international network over multiple carriers, over multiple vendors, over multiple SLAs. But we, again, this week had another live example of Artina and PulseView at work.